I'd like to join in on the collab that Roots and Refuge has started up. I'm a big fan of Jess and have watched her for years, like right from the beginning, and it's just been so fun to see her channel grow and to see her grow. And the collab that she's proposed is for people to share real, tried and true information sources so that we know what has been tested versus what might just be an AI written book. And I found this to be such timely information to gather from the homesteading community, because not too long ago I bought a book from Amazon on greenhouses, on greenhouse design, and like how to select the appropriate greenhouse design for your needs. And it was shockingly bad. And then I realized it was AI written. And like, I returned it to Amazon and complained about it. I'm like, who is this author? This is nonsense. But it wasn't an author. It was like published by some corporation, whatever. And it was junk. It was absolute junk and obviously written by AI. And so this is obviously a pertinent topic. It's happening more and more. And I have a small collection of books. As somebody who prefers the digital world, I may be an outlier here, but I like to have things on my screen in my one device and it's always with me. As somebody who prefers that form of media, I still collect some books. There are books that I have little tabs in that I've read multiple times. There are books that I bring out to the garden with me that get rained on. There are just some books that are so useful that I have them in hard copy form. Also, sometimes books are really expensive, and going to the library is a little inconvenient, I'm not gonna lie. And having this like specific amount of time you have to read a library book before you start to get charged for it is a little inconvenient. And so sometimes I'll buy a Kindle version of a book. And so my collection is smaller than it should be, considering all of the resources that I consume. Regardless, there are two books that I feel like I am so confident in that I have to share them with the world at large who might be interested in either of these topics. I'm going to start with Building Soil, a down-to-earth approach, natural solutions for better gardens and yards. This is written by Elizabeth Murphy. This book has been extremely helpful to me as I moved from one small urban homestead in like a downtown core area where I just had a few raised beds filled with compost, to moving to this slightly larger 1/4 acre suburban homestead where the ground was all compacted developer fill, and I knew I wanted to put in a mini orchard, a food forest, and just plant a ton of different plants that I hadn't grown before. I still have raised beds where I've just cheated and bought really good quality triple mix and compost to fill them with. But I'm learning from this book how to develop soil. It's actually been a long time since I've read this book, but I'm gonna just pull out a couple of the things that I have little tabs on as a reminder of what was awesome about it. So they do soil texture testing in here. They walk you through how to figure out if you've got like the clay, the silt, the sand, or what ratio of clay, silt, and sand you have in your soil. And it walks you through like the jar test, just a DIY, quick, easy test to figure out the consistency of your soil. And it's got the handy chart right next to it so you can compare your findings. I love this book for bringing it out with me into the garden. It has this cool My Soil Quality report card. So you can track how your soil drains. You can track the soil aggregates, like is it crumbly or is it silty or clayey. You can track whether it's compacted. So they give you a test to find out, like, you know, those flags, little landscaping or marking flags that are a little wire stick with the orange flag on it. You can use that to poke it into the ground and test how far down it goes. Like simple DIY tests to tell you all about your soil. I loved this table. Carbon to nitrogen ratios in different materials. Generally, materials with a carbon to nitrogen ratio of less than 20 release nitrogen into the soil. Materials with a ratio greater than 25 will initially take some nitrogen from the soil. So when I add wood chips, is it on here? Shrub trimmings 53. When I add wood chips, I know that that's going to tie up some of the nitrogen from the surface layer of soil as it breaks down. It's a lot of carbon that you're adding, and so you don't want to plant like delicate little vegetable seedlings right in that surface layer, because all that nitrogen is going to be tied up and won't be able to feed those plants. And so this is just a really handy table to refer to if you're adding stuff as an amendment or a mulch or whatever, or if you're looking at a growing space that has this stuff on it already and you want to decide what you can plant there. It's a super handy table. Different fertilizers, lime and fertilizers for their nutrient values, organic fertilizer choices, again, like, bat guano is in here, that's a good one, bone meal, feather meal, like it's a handy little reference table that lets you know what kind of nutrient you should add and when. Books like this are really great to break it down for the layperson, for the casual reader, for the gardener, so I really appreciate that. It really makes soil science accessible. An intro to soil science, at least. Okay, and the other book that I really wanted to talk about was Grow a Little Fruit Tree. Perhaps if you have a large piece of land and you just want to grow an orchard, or you just want to throw fruit trees in the ground and let them do their magic, this book isn't for you. But if you have a smaller growing space, so an urban setting or a suburban setting, or even if you just want some fruit trees close to your living space, close to your home, and you want to keep them a manageable size, this book has invaluable information in it. This book has taught me that you can actually get more production out of a smaller tree that is well kept, well groomed, than you can if you just let a tree grow on its own to its own size. It has information on pruning, which I followed. If you follow me on my Instagram, 2 years ago I planted my first round of fruit trees, and I had to overcome the fear of the heading cut, where you plant your little whip, your little fruit tree, and you chop it off like 2/3 of the way down, and it's painful. And at first I had a lot of trouble just having confidence in myself to do that, but I learned that from this book. I followed that advice, and I have been so happy with the results. This book will guide you to make a fruit tree that has a low crotch, so it starts out, maybe 2 feet, 3 feet from the ground, and then it branches out to the shape that you want and the shape that's best for the tree, makes maintenance easiest. So just know that if you're reading this book, that's the kind of fruit tree it's going to push you towards. Some of the things I have flagged in this book it gives great information on considering ripening times. So if you want to plant a mini orchard or a big orchard, keep in mind the ripening times of all the different varieties, so that you're not overwhelmed if everything ripens in September, that you get a little something from each species throughout the growing seasons. It's got this cool diagram on the close planting technique. It shows you distances and spacings that you can use that this author has proven to work. So you can put fruit trees so close together, like 18 inches apart, 2 trees in one hole, and they'll just grow away from each other. And so you can also do like hedgerows of fruit trees. And so she lays that out in a diagram that she has shown have worked. I don't think I mentioned the author. Anne Ralph. Anne, right? It just says Ralph. Yeah. Anne Ralph wrote this book. So this book also taught me about summer pruning. You hear a lot about pruning fruit trees, like on the internet and other sources that tell you to prune in late winter. So like February or March. But here, we are still under a lot of snow in February and March. And if you prune in like April, it actually gives the tree a good chance to heal up. However, the author of this book recommends that if you want to keep your trees in check, keep the size maintainable, like a 6-foot fruit tree, you can prune it in June. So at the summer solstice, at the longest day of the year, when your tree is putting out all this new growth, if you prune it back at that point, then it doesn't react so severely the next year with all those water sprouts and all that dramatic growth increase. You're taking away its ability to photosynthesize and store energy in its root system through that summer. It reduces its ability. It reduces the energy that it stores. So you're just keeping your fruit tree's growth in check in a proactive way. It talks about suckers and water sprouts. It shows some really great pictures to help you understand what fruiting spurs would look like on different types of trees, like apple trees versus stone fruits. So you know what to look for when you're pruning and you don't cut off those wonderful fruiting spurs that will give you fruit. This book also taught me all about the value of bare root fruit trees. Many times I had gone into nurseries and garden centers and seen these big fully leafed fruit trees in big pots and thought, yeah, I would be so ahead of the game if I bought that. Oh, and look, it's on sale, like end of season sale. But this book has convinced me that bare root is better. I got interrupted and I got cold, so I got a coat. Anyway, this book has taught me about the value of bare root fruit trees. Potted fruit trees, their roots are often root bound, they're constricted, they're growing in soil, and they're actively growing when you buy them. So you plant them and they go through shock sometimes. The roots are so used to their confines and to the soil that they're in that pot that they don't want to spread out as readily. It takes some adjustment, sometimes some shock to get there. Bare root fruit trees, you just plunk these bare roots in the ground, and when they awake from dormancy, they just start growing as if nothing happened, and they just acclimate much better that way. And so they end up surpassing the growth rate of fruit trees that have been in pots. Also, you can just get so many more options from bare root. So many different types of tree, different root stocks mixed with different types of fruit. Like it's wonderful to buy bare root if you can. And this book taught me about that and helped me understand why bare root is better. This book talks a lot about growing the right fruit tree for your climate. So this is like a really valuable lesson for growing anything, really. If you want it to succeed and feel like not too much of a burden to try to keep things alive, then grow things that are suited to your climate. This book also really hammered home that point for me, and I think has simplified my life as a gardener. I'm just trying to look for a picture. They've got the bare root whip, freshly planted. That's what it looks like after that heading cut. So you like chop it off. Anyway, this book has been really helpful on a really practical level. It's not like, I also have a book, I think it's called the Fruit Grower's Bible, something like that. It's a big thick compendium, and it has information on pruning, and it has information on pests and diseases and everything. This is a thin book, relatively speaking. It's an easy read, and I just found it really inspiring. But it also has really practical information. It has diagrams of what the pruning should look like, and information for all different species of fruit. So it's just a really good all-around book for beginner-ish. You know, if you're interested in growing fruit trees, either you've never grown them before or you're looking for a bit of a different perspective. This is a fun book, easy to read and full of information. So, out of my collection, these are the two that I feel have impacted me the most in my current garden, and the ones that I have dragged out into my garden in the dirt and everything more than once. They're books that I have had much success following, and they are books that I know are real books. I know that the authors are real people who have done their due diligence, and so yeah, very happy to recommend these. And I'm also really excited to see what else gets added to this list. I think I'm gonna have a very long birthday wish list coming up after I see all the books that get added to the collab. Thanks, Jess from Roots and Refuge, for starting this collaboration. I think this is a great initiative, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what else is out there.